Rightio. Now, earlier on with Rob Pannell, he talked about embodied carbon and the analysis of it, and he asked the room who here can explain it, and I didn't see too many hands going up. The good news is that this next paper, in fact, has come as a call via input to this seminar. So people wanted to know about this. The paper is by Technoform, and Dyann is going to present this. Now, Dyann Stewart has been involved in the construction sector for some 27 years, various senior management roles across the window and door industry, and so she's going to share some lessons around the new research project for Technoform, calculating and reporting upfront carbon emissions. So everything you need to know about embodied carbon. I'd like to introduce now Dyann Stewart. Well, thank you.
Good morning. So, my name is Dyann Stewart, and I am honoured to present to you an analysis that shed light on the essential aspect of sustainable construction, the upfront carbon analysis of New Zealand fenestration systems. Bit fancy, isn't it? Fenestration is just a fancy word for windows and doors, but the study's findings are relevant for any product. No matter what you're doing, the findings are still relevant. I undertook this research on behalf of Technoform, and it took months, like seriously, months of work, and today we've got 15 minutes to get that months and months across to you, so that's great. I'm looking forward to it. 60 pages and 15 minutes. Let's go! Right. So, each person sitting in this room plays a crucial role in reducing the carbon footprint of the construction industry. Your involvement is not just appreciated, it's essential. As you listen to me today, I urge you to reflect on your role in accurately measuring the carbon footprint of New Zealand's built environment. This presentation may focus on fenestration or windows and doors, but the question is, are you transparently measuring the environmental impact of your product, your business, and your people? The answer might be different for everybody in this room, and that's okay. But one thing we know for sure is that you all care, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here today. Maybe, unless you were forced to by your boss, I don't know. So, current legislation for windows and doors used in buildings only considers the use stage, specifically operational carbon. And look, hand on heart, we understand that operational carbon is critical. Our research was not undertaken to undermine that work. Our research was conducted to understand if window frame material choices would be different if we considered the upfront carbon impact from international shipping and transport to the remote island of New Zealand. Studies have shown that energy consumption of buildings during the operational phase has a large proportion of emissions attributed to heating, cooling, lighting, and other electronic devices. And heat loss or heat gain through fenestration systems is a critical aspect of reducing operational carbon. Therefore, it makes sense to think about operational carbon first, and reducing the energy or improving the energy efficiency and promoting sustainable practices during a building's operational phase. Sure, great, stage one, sounds good. However, during the use stage, additional factors, not just operational carbon, influence a building's performance and environmental sustainability. For example, regular repair and maintenance keep building systems running smoothly and efficiently, contributing to a sustainable future, while saving on costly repairs and maintenance and replacement over time. Proper maintenance practices were highlighted as one of the many issues during New Zealand's leaky building crisis of the early 2000s, and we should not ignore what we learnt from that disaster. We should also remember that the choice of frame material for windows and doors can impact maintenance and repair capability and replacement timelines. As Stephanie from Aotea mentioned in her presentation, looking at the long-term performance of a building is critical for reducing the long-term environmental impacts far into the future, not just the upfront costs. This is because the New Zealand Building Clause B2 durability is only 15 years for windows and doors. So does that mean your windows and doors are going to be replaced every 15 years? Well, it is well within the legislative requirements that it could be, but it's not very practical, is it? So, and we know that cold aluminium windows and doors have been in service in New Zealand for 50 years. We know this because units from the 70s and 80s are starting to be replaced now. So, eyeing the future, replacement costs should play a role in long-term decision making to reduce the long-term carbon emissions for any build. That word long-term, it just keeps coming up, doesn't it? Not just now, but the long-term. We should not ignore other carbon emissions generating activities such as the raw material extraction, material production, and the shipping of transport phases. Then, at the other end of the product's life cycle, we should not ignore end of life, reuse, recycling, and the opportunity for a circular economy within the built environment. All of this information is important, all of it. Oh. And we identified that more research was required on the impacts of recycling and durability of material options for fenestration systems and any product. However, our report focused only on upfront carbon emissions. Basically, to do carbon accounting right, it's really hard. But there are some simple things you can do in your business, and you can positively impact transparent reporting, which can lead to reducing the carbon emissions of New Zealand's built environment. As Nathan from JTB Architects said on the previous panel, carbon analysis is a critical step. And if you are a newbie to reducing the carbon impact of your product, understanding life cycle assessments or understanding how to select a product for your project, an environmental product declaration or EPD can help fill that void when it comes to embodied carbon emissions. Our report focused on the upfront carbon emissions associated with raw material extraction, material production, and transport and shipping. And those two are kind of the same but smushed in together because they are different in the report. And EPDs already account for those activities, but not all EPDs are created equally. There are some hidden catches with an EPD. Those hidden catches mean you can, tick a box for providing carbon reporting for your product without achieving reduced emissions and transparency in the reporting. And from a local manufacturing perspective, transparency is going to be critical. Environmental Product Declarations, or EPDs, are standardised documents that provide transparent and comparable information about a product's environmental impact based on specific portions of a life cycle assessment. That sounds pretty good so far, doesn't it? Tick, that's what we need. However, an EPD offers details on the product's environmental performance for factors like energy consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, and other relevant environmental indicators. Actually, well, that's another tick. So what? What else do we need? However, there are some hidden catches, which, in our opinion, is why a New Zealand-specific EPD is so important. The hidden catch is what is missing from an internationally sourced EPD. And what is missing is the upfront carbon emissions from international shipping and transport. This slide shows the route a house lot of windows, or any imported product, needs to take to be shipped to New Zealand. Of course, other European countries might take different routes, but Hamburg, Germany was one of the first routes requested by Technoform. And I calculated that with such joy. This was the route from Hamburg, Germany to New Zealand in 2023. Unfortunately, the resurgence of piracy in regions such as the Gulf of Aden has prompted significant changes to this route, with freight companies and shipping lines now avoiding privacy-prone areas by taking longer but safer routes that steer clear of pirate-infested waters. This rerouting can add extra time and carbon costs to the shipping journey that I calculated in 2023. But at least the ship, cargo and crew will remain safe. At first glance, you may conclude that because of China's proximity to New Zealand, the shorter shipping distance would be vital in reducing the upfront carbon emissions associated with international shipping and transport. And you would be right. This shorter distance decreases shipping emissions. However, there's always a however or a but. The report highlights an exceptionally high upfront carbon cost due to the emissions associated with extracting and processing raw material and manufacturing in China. And I will reiterate, the report's findings are based on windows and doors, but other products may have different outcomes. So, why would Technoform commission a report like this? The key point here is transparency. While internationally, UPVC and thermally broken window and door systems vie for market share, New Zealand has traditionally favoured cold aluminium frames. However, with the evolving H1 energy efficiency regulations, there has been a noticeable uptake in importation of UPVC and thermally broken systems. The shift towards importation and the issue of transparency piqued Technoform's interest. In cases where legislation does not mandate it and importers may not prioritise it, failure to account for the upfront carbon emissions associated with international shipping and transport could mislead the specification industry working to reduce carbon emissions. This is because an internationally sourced EPD is unlikely to include the upfront carbon emissions for fenestration products, or any product, manufactured overseas and shipped to New Zealand. Boring little slide, isn't it? To understand the impact of not measuring the upfront carbon emissions from international shipping and transport, we began the research by selecting two brands' house models. They're called MH1 and MH2. We used product EPDs for locally and internationally sourced UPVC and thermally broken fenestration systems, and calculated the upfront carbon impact of those two house lots, including local and international shipping and transport emissions. We used China, Germany and New Zealand as reference countries and studied house lots manufactured internationally and containerised long lengths manufactured in New Zealand. Due to the time frame available today, I've reduced the example to house lots just for this presentation. So this is house lots manufactured in China, Germany and New Zealand. The full report also includes UPVC and thermally broken long lengths shipped to New Zealand and manufactured locally. And even when you include the long lengths shipped internationally and manufactured in New Zealand, the analysis showed that fenestration systems made from New Zealand-produced aluminium generated the lowest carbon emissions, upfront carbon emissions. This is because the New Zealand-produced aluminium uses hydroelectricity and the transport is only New Zealand-wide, which reduces the product's carbon impact. In red, where's the little pointery thing? No! In red, there's the red. In red, you can see the effect of international shipping and transport emissions on the UPVC and aluminium house lots sourced from Hamburg, Germany and Guangzhou, China. These house lots are manufactured in their country of origin and shipped to New Zealand. In purple, you can see that factoring in international transport and shipping for China manufactured aluminium had little effect, as the emissions from raw extraction and material production significantly increased China's upfront carbon emissions. At the end of this presentation, there will be a QR code to download the report and read the findings, if you like that sort of thing. Bit of a 60-page read on data. Lucky you. So, what's next? What did Technoform want to achieve from this analysis and the opportunity to present today? Well, the basic answer is we can do better. In addition to reducing operational carbon as required by legislation, we should also prioritise additional sustainability efforts for improving transparency while reducing carbon emissions in New Zealand's built environment. If you are a manufacturer or distributor, you could start working on producing a locally produced environmental product declaration, or EPD. If your supplier already has an EPD, you could ensure your documentation includes all elements of international shipping and transport required for the product to make it to New Zealand shores. This is important to maintain transparency in the supply chain. If you are an architect, designer or specifier, you can request an EPD and review those provided to you. Ask questions and confirm if the document was written for New Zealand built environment or produced for another country or continent. If an EPD is international, it is unlikely that international shipping and transport to New Zealand has been included in the calculations. You can request your suppliers provide more transparency to help you make better, more informed decisions. Even for a residential dwelling, the number of products and EPDs you would need to consider would be mind-boggling. And you probably wouldn't have time. However, you could start with materials and products that significantly impact energy efficiency, such as like insulation and your window and door products for your build. If you are a policymaker responsible for addressing carbon emissions, please consider implementing transparency in reporting. We suggest that if EPDs are produced internationally, they should include an addendum detailing the upfront carbon emissions associated with international shipping and transport. The proposed changes have the potential to enhance transparency in the supply chain and level the playing field for locally manufactured products in the marketplace. Additionally, implementing long-term carbon reduction practices could effectively decrease the carbon emissions of New Zealand's built environment by addressing more than just operational carbon. Thanks for your time today. That was a quick go-through. Here is the QR code. If you would like to download the report, it is there for you to read in all its glory. Thank you.